Welcome to the Hutchinson Reno County Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum for the primary election season for the races of the Reno County Commission District 1. That will be our first debate, and then followed by the Kansas House of Representatives Districts 101 and 102. I'm Deborah Tufel, and I have the privilege of being your moderator this evening. And on behalf of the Chamber, we welcome you and appreciate all of you for taking your time this evening. This is being recorded, so we will have the opportunity to post this on our social media following the evening. We also want to share our appreciation to the folks at Hutchinson Community College for letting us use this great facility and their team that is managing all of the sound and technology. We also would like to thank our sponsors, AT&T and Hutchinson Regional Healthcare System, who are longtime supporters of our legislative and candidate events. And we would also like to thank the media and those members of our chamber who have submitted questions. A few of you submitted questions. We tried to work them into all of the topic areas that the Public Policy Committee felt was important to address tonight. As a reminder, we do not endorse candidates. However, it is part of our mission to make sure that we are ensuring our public policy agenda is carried out and bringing these issues to the community for you to learn about public policy issues and engage in opportunities to hear from the candidates. The discussion tonight, as I said, will feature the first contested race for Reno County Commission 1, and so I would like to introduce the candidates to you who are seated to my left, and I know you're all excited to hear from them tonight about their policy issues, and they're excited to be here. We are joined by the two candidates for Commission District 1, and we did not have opposition in some of the other races, and so these are the only ones that we will have a debate for tonight, but we will have another opportunity for the general election where you'll get to hear from all of the districts that are on the ballot. The Republican Party candidates for this district include Mike Sullivan from Hutchinson and Don Varney, also from Hutchinson, so please help me welcome them to the stage tonight with a round of applause. Candidates, we are grateful for your participation. We have reminded them that the format for tonight will begin with a 3-minute opening statement, and then we will have a series of about 8 questions, and then we will close with closing statements. And these questions, as I said, have been prepared by our Public Policy Committee and many of our members. The candidates will respond in order by district number and then alphabetically by last name, and then we will rotate, and each will have an opportunity for a rebuttal if they choose. And we hope to keep the responses on time. We do have a timekeeper down in front. Leanne Cox will be keeping time for the event. She will hold up a yellow card when there are 30 seconds remaining, and then she will hold up the red card, and you'll hear the sound of the bell when time is up for each response, and we do reserve the right to jump in if we need to. Finally, before we begin, for the audience, we ask you to please be respectful of the candidates on the stage and refrain from booing or interruptions during the Q&A. Please don't obstruct the view of people behind you. Applause is welcome, of course, but please keep other noise to a minimum. And also, this is your reminder to silence your cell phones. Thank you for your cooperation, and we are excited to get started. So we will begin with opening statements from District 1 with Mike Sullivan.
Is it on? Got to have my notes here. A good friend of mine said, you don't need notes. Well, at my age, they say the first thing you lose is your memory, and I forgot what the second was. Well, I grew up in a little town of Burton. It was a nice little town to grow up in. I earned a degree from Hutch Community College. Spent a couple of years over here working, and all the way through my education, I had jobs to pay the bills. Then I went to Wichita State University, got an accounting degree, graduated, sat for the CPA exam right after graduation. Then went to work for a CPA firm for a couple of years, doing audits and taxes and numbers stuff. Then and kind of wanted to move back to Hutch, my hometown. I'm more comfortable over here, not a lot of people and relatives in Hutch. So I wanted to move back to Hutch. One of my motivations was I wanted to see more of a beautiful young lady. Anyway, I had several opportunities, but I went to work at Carey Salt because it seemed like the opportunities were better there. Started out as a property accountant and then became, a couple years later, cost accountant, and then assistant controller, office manager, and then eventually a controller for a year or so. But I kind of got burnt out. My boss expected me to work 7 days a week, and I had family, didn't really want to do that. So with a big cut in pay, I went to work for Nickerson School District, USD 309, as a business manager and clerk of the board. And that gave me opportunity to spend time with my family, with my kids, and volunteer work and that sort of thing. I was happy that I didn't very often miss any of my kids' activities. That afforded me that opportunity. And while I was there, the first year was supposed to do a budget, and the superintendent had an accident and couldn't. He was unconscious for a few days. So I had to do the budget, and I was able to maximize state aid, maximize budget authority, and reduce the mill levy, which at the time was not very likely. So I've got a little more to say, but I'll save that to the end.
All right, thank you, Mike. Next, we'll hear from Don Varney.
First, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you that's come out tonight. Some of you are missing church, and that shows you how active and how concerned you are about our community. I am Don Varney. I was born in Hutchinson, grew up until I was 8 on a farm 14 miles west of town, and then our family began moving across the country for various reasons, primarily because of my handicapped brother's health. So I've lived all over except the southeast part of the country. 33 years ago in 1993, God brought us back to Hutchinson. He has a strange sense of humor, and I had always loved Kansas and always wanted to come back. I just didn't expect to come back in this way. The way I came back was as the director of nuclear medicine at Hutchinson Hospital. That's what it was called at the time. I'm a physician. I'm a scientist at heart. I have done research in nephrology, which is kidney science, at KU, Kansas City, and at Stanford University out in Palo Alto, California. I always wanted to be a veterinarian, and that just didn't happen. So God ended up taking me on to be a physician. I loved nuclear medicine. I ended up going into psychiatry, and I'm also trained in that. So that gives me both a real scientific depth and understanding. If I had known more about it, I might have become a physicist. I just find, I'm very curious, and I find science so interesting and fun, and I want to learn something new every day. So that's basically who I am. I have been involved in the Republicans for probably about 10 years. I'm the precinct committee woman for Precinct 24. I've gone to some of the state conventions, and I'm active in the local meetings. I was one of the people who got sandblasted fixing the float on Saturday for the parade. But it's a joy, and I have met so many wonderful people through the Republicans. We have the same values. I'm involved in my church. I'm on the tech team. I believe in the prospects that Reno County has. I'm very hopeful. We have a lot of strengths. We have hardworking people, people who are family-oriented. And so thank you very much for letting us come tonight and speak with you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Varney. Now we're ready to get started with some questions, and the first one of those we will begin with Mike Sullivan. Commissioners set public policy, adopt a budget, and set the policy direction of the county. What do you believe is the proper role of a county commissioner, and how do you balance setting policy while allowing professional staff to manage day-to-day operations? Oh, and don't forget your microphone and hold it up close.
I try to do kind of what I advise new school board members to do when I was with the school. It's important when you're new, you need to shut up and listen and kind of follow the pattern of other commissioners. Some of the policies are already set and we can't change them, so we need to kind of accommodate that and study the issues before you make any decisions.
All right, and Dawn?
As I've said, I think one of our greatest strengths here is our people. As voters, I want to be transparent to you. I want to know what your thoughts are, your opinions. I don't have all the answers. I don't know it all. I'm just Dawn, and that's what my friends call me. I'm very curious. Also, having my background in psychiatry, I have a lot of empathy, and I understand that people have dreams and desires and pains, and I've been through them myself. So I really want to know from you folks, what do you want as policy? And then let's set that from there.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
Well, I'd second that motion. We have to listen to the voters, hear what they say, and we can't always do what they want you to do because sometimes it's not possible, but you have to listen and try to accomplish what they ask.
Okay, for question 2, we'll begin with Don Varney and followed by Mike Sullivan. Reno County has experienced rising costs and also has been conservative with its budget for many years, and yet many of the largest portions of the budget are unfunded mandates by the state of Kansas. What principles would guide your budget decisions without severely impacting the level of service to our citizens?
I think this answer is going to hurt. We are giving away taxpayer money to for-profit companies. We're giving away taxpayer money to very worthy causes, but I believe that we need to go through our budget line by line, and we need to ask foremost the question, is this an essential function of the Reno County government? And if it's not, I believe it should be eliminated. We'll start there.
And Mike?
Well, I think that's a big problem. I know the schools, they have trouble with unfunded mandates, and hopefully our representatives in Topeka will help to deal with that problem. But they are mandates. We have to do it. There are items in the budget, I think, and I haven't studied it thoroughly, but I think there's items in the budget that can be reduced that aren't mandates. But you cannot reduce budget areas that are harmful to the public, safety, and that sort of thing. We've got to take care of our people.
Dawn, do you have any rebuttal?
I think the primary functions of the county government are to take care of our infrastructures, our roads, our bridges, our public safety services, including fire and the like. We cannot underfund those. In fact, we need to be adding more. We're having antiquated equipment that needs to be replaced. There will have to be increases in some places, but I think overall we can reduce a lot of our cost.
Okay, the third question will begin with Mike, followed by Dawn. A county commissioner makes decisions on policies and business affairs at a commission meeting. How do you balance making decisions on behalf of all your constituents, district or whole county, when there are competing interests? And how would you communicate difficult decisions to citizens who strongly disagree with decisions determined by the commission to be what is in the best interest for the overall good of the county?
Well, I think I've kind of observed something a couple weeks ago. There's 5 commissioners, and they don't all agree 100%. If you make a decision that's not popular but necessary, you just have to explain why, the pros and the cons, and do what's best for the county.
Dawn?
There is not a single decision that the commission is going to make that is going to please everybody. Every single policy, every decision is going to be objected to by somebody. Hopefully, we are going with the right things, the legal things, and the desires of our voters. We have a very conservative county here, and I have a Facebook page, Don Varney, for Reno County Commission. Anyone is welcome to come there, comment, message me. I declared that I will be transparent. If anybody has questions, they can come to me, and I will do the absolute best I can to earn the trust of the voters.
Mike?
Well, I think, as I observed a couple weeks ago, not all voters agree on the decision that's made. So you can't please everybody, but you have to do what's in the best interest of the county in terms of safety and all of that sort of thing. But I think it's important, if you're communicating with voters, that you explain the facts and the reason for the decision. And sometimes we don't like it, but sometimes you have to do what the majority says.
All right, moving on to question 4. We will begin with Dawn, followed by Mike on this one. In the competitive field of economic development, Reno County competes with communities across Kansas and neighboring states for investment to fuel the economy. In the last 5 years, Reno County has supported programs that have assisted in creating 800 primary jobs and attracting over $1.2 billion in new investment into the economy. How should the county evaluate requests for economic development incentives to ensure public dollars produce measurable public benefits?
I applaud the commissioners and the city council for bringing in businesses, bringing in jobs. That's what we need to be able to attract people to come here and to keep our young people here. We don't want them going out and getting jobs in Wichita or in Texas or Florida. So I believe that it's really important, however, that the constituents know what's going on. I'm really not a proponent of, for lack of other words, backroom deals. I promise you that I will never sign a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. It's just against my fabric of wanting to be transparent. I think that anything that comes so far as businesses coming into town, I think the people need to have a say.
Mike?
Well, obviously, I support new jobs, new businesses in Hutch, but I think it's important that the commission doesn't pick winners and losers like our federal government has done on occasion. We need to weigh heavily if there's any sort of tax incentives. Is that really going to add up and help in the end? I've seen some situations where, the hotel down the road, that never paid off. So we have to consider all the factors and make sure that we don't gamble with the taxpayers' money. We want to make it a sure thing.
Dawn, do you have any rebuttal?
Just as I said earlier, I think Mr. Sullivan and I agree on an awful lot of topics.
All right, for the 5th question, we'll begin with Mike, followed by Dawn. This one is about housing. Housing availability continues to be one of the top concerns identified by employers and residents. It was cited in the county housing study as well as in the Elevate Reno County Strategic Plan for Economic Development, while population growth has been relatively flat for many years. Reno County has adopted neighborhood revitalization programs countywide and created new housing incentives to encourage new investment in residential growth. How would you promote Reno County to attract prospective residents?
Well, I was on the board at Interfaith Housing for 5 years and was involved with them for about 20 years before that. They have a program that helps lower income people afford housing, and they've built some other housing, and their plan really works well and doesn't cost local taxpayers any money. That's kind of the project that I think I'd have to study before I really have a strong opinion, but we need to do what we can to help. And I think it would help also if people who rent houses maybe get a break once in a while. They need to have houses that are fit to live in, but sometimes the codes from the city are maybe a little prohibitive to improving houses.
Dawn?
Mike stole my thunder because I was going to mention interfaith housing. Honestly, when it comes down to those essential functions of county government, providing houses is not one of them. I agree, we have some awesome private entities here, including Interfaith Housing, that does help upgrade the older homes for people that aren't able to do that themselves financially or physically. They can't do that. And I applaud them, and that's the kind of thing that we need to really support. And I do think that we don't need a lot of new housing. We have a lot of areas where there are drugs that are not very good areas to be in. I think we need to enforce the codes that we have. Perhaps when we look into it, perhaps we need to add more people to our code enforcement department. But there are other things that the county needs to be looking at and paying for, but we need to also be supporting in every way we can those entities that are supplying houses.
Mike?
Well, obviously I agree. The county, I was at a meeting this morning, and they're trying to deal with budget cuts because there's a limited revenue. So obviously I don't think there should be any contributions from the taxpayers to support housing. But I was involved with Interfaith Housing long enough that the way they run the program is really, really profitable for the person who needs the house and also the taxpayer.
Okay, moving on to question 6. This one is on the topic of public health. The County Commission serves as the Board of Public Health in Reno County. The Community Health Assessment identified 4 important issues, including mental health, access to care, child care, and substance misuse. What do you think Reno County's role should be in addressing these key issues? And this one will begin with Dawn.
There's a lot to unpack there. We do have a county health department that provides a lot of services, everything from vaccines to tests to observing public health issues and needs. I think we need to bring in more psychiatric help. We need something like mirrors or ComCare to be able to provide the medical care for the people with mental health problems. There are a lot of people that are struggling. They're struggling with drugs, they're struggling with depression. The suicide rate of my personal friends is way too high. We need to do something to bring in private enterprises, not the county, but we need to make Hutchinson, make Reno County attractive for people who can be able to provide the services that we really need.
Mike?
Well, I got a lot to learn if I'm on the commission, but I wonder if there wouldn't be some federal funds to assist with some of those items. But locally, we've got the Open Door, which helps with child care and unwanted pregnancies, that sort of thing. I don't know that the county has money to assist that, but in terms of regulations and support, and I think a lot of the schools are now getting involved in child care, early education. So I guess we can encourage that however we can without subsidizing it.
And Dawn, any rebuttal?
I have volunteered at Open Door. It's a great organization. It really does provide needed services, both to young women and young men. That said, it's still not a county essential service. I believe that the people of Hutchinson and of Reno County, we need to rise up as a community and support these places. We need to donate to them financially and with our time and with our effort.
Okay, question 7 is kind of building on that around the topic of childcare and housing, but tax policy. The county has invested a significant amount of federal ARPA dollars in childcare retention and expansion and housing rehabilitation in the last 4 years. Last year, the county looked at a countywide sales tax as one way to continue to fill gaps in these areas. Without a countywide sales tax to support community needs, what do you feel the county's role should be in addressing housing rehabilitation and child care programs for residents? And we'll begin with Mike.
Well, I think short of financing that sort of thing, I think some of the regulations and some of the people administering the regulations to improve housing could maybe attempt to work a little better with the owners of those homes. I've talked to several people who said the regulations are too strict. I had a neighbor who wanted to put new siding on his garage. He had particle board on there. It was rotting off. He actually worked for the city, and the city wouldn't let him put hardy board on. He had to put the same thing on, which would have just rotted again. So I think maybe some of the regulations and some of the oversight from the people that control that could improve. Might help a lot.
Dawn?
Can you repeat that again?
Sure. The county has invested a significant amount of federal ARPA dollars in child care retention and expansion and housing rehabilitation in the last 4 years. Last year, the county looked at a countywide sales tax as one way to fill these gaps. Without a countywide sales tax to support community needs, what do you feel the county's role should be in addressing housing rehabilitation and child care programs for residents?
This seems rather similar to the prior question. I don't believe we should be increasing sales tax. I don't think our property taxes should be increased. I think our taxes should be brought down if at all possible. Certainly we should be neutral. Again, I think it's great if we have federal dollars coming in. We need to have some kind of a subcommission, perhaps, to determine where those dollars are going to go with an application process that focuses primarily on the efficient use of that money for the greatest outcome per dollar.
Mike, any rebuttal?
Well, I just was thinking as far as child care is concerned, what I've observed, what some of the public schools are doing is really helping, I think, in that area.
Okay. Now we're ready for question 8 before we move on to closing statements. You guys have been moving right along on these questions. Last month, the Commission discussed regulations and the possible ban of certain types of industrial development, including data centers and battery energy storage. Both of these sectors create the opportunity to bring in significant investment and property taxes. What do you think is the appropriate role of the county in regulating these industries to address the concerns expressed by residents? And we will begin first with Dawn, followed by Mike.
About 3 weeks ago, on a Monday night, I believe it was, there was a open meeting of the county commissioners on the main floor of the courthouse. It was very well attended by people who very loudly, vocally indicated that they are against data centers. I too am against them. I believe at the very least we should have a moratorium until we know what the side effects are. I would perhaps even vote for a ban. These companies aren't coming here to do us good. They're coming here to make money, and they're going to be making money off of us. So why are they wanting Reno County? Think about that. There's going to be all kinds of issues. People know about them. My big issue as far as a physician is infrasound. Infrasound is below 20 hertz, very long wavelengths that are not well buffered by hardly anything, and they travel for miles and miles. We can't hear it. The fact it's called infrasound means it's below audible sound. Our bodies, however, respond. In experiments, they have found that infrasound at 100 decibels or more literally affects cardiac function within an hour. We're going to be having people here that are not living near the data center, but they're not going to be feeling well, and they're not going to know why.
Mike?
I was at that same meeting, and I'm kind of in the same place where Randy is. When I went to a meeting in Haven, they discussed that sort of thing. They had two kind of semi-retired engineers. One was a computer guy, and the other was a building guy. I had about 3 questions. Initially, water. Water's a big deal, and we seem to be having a short supply of water, and the state can't seem to rein in usage. Even when they have water-saving ideas and they sell the water to somebody else. But anyway, infrastructure, sound pollution that she mentioned is a serious issue, and part of the problem with that is it can affect your health and you don't even hear it. Water consumption, environmental issues, and if they reprocess the water and put chemicals in it, then they have to dispose of that at some point in time. And then you have concerns about water pollution. I kind of think that it could be a moot point because the city probably has the facilities out at Cessna to maybe make that happen. And the county really has no control over what the city does.
Dawn, any rebuttal?
From 1957 to 1961, there was a drug that was sold over the counter even throughout Europe, Canada, Australia, South America. It was called thalidomide. It was known to be a very, very safe medicine. Pregnant women took it to help take care of their morning sickness. They ended up with over 10,000 babies with no limbs. There were at least 20,000 babies that weren't born. First, do no harm. We don't know what the infrasound is going to do. We know about some of these other issues, the water, the contaminants. We simply do not know what infrasound is going to do to our health and how many of us and our children are going to be affected. Therefore, I would say, let's not bring in data centers.
Okay, moving on to the closing statements. We will begin with a 3-minute closing statement from Dawn, followed by Mike. And I would just ask in your closing if you would please tell us your top 3 goals that you hope to accomplish if elected to the Reno County Commission.
Let's answer those questions first because I might have other things that I don't get to them. My first goal, if I'm elected to the county commission, is to be responsive to you, the voters. You are the ones we're serving. Not only do I not know everything, but I don't know how you feel. I want to serve you. I'm not the big wig. The commission is not the big wig. You guys are the boss, and we need to keep that in mind. I would like to streamline some of our services, minimize our budget as much as possible. If at all possible, I would like to try to cut our taxes. I would like to see improvement in our school system. Kansas is, last I heard, 11th in the country as far as spending money per student, but we're 38th in the country as far as our outcomes of how students do on tests. Since we got an injection of $1.1 billion into our educational system, our scores have been going down. Why is that? We need to support our schools, but money's not the answer. There's a lot of things that are going on that we think we would love, and they sound worthy and great on the surface, and they are. But it's not the duty of the county government to pay for it. I know how hard it is to live here. I know how hard it is to get through life. I myself, I've been in a wheelchair and on crutches for months, years. I know what it's like to go bankrupt because of overwhelming medical cost. I know that everybody has pain, heartbreak, disappointments. Every one of us out here, we hurt. I see Reno County hurting, but I believe that we can get better. And I want to be part of that. Again, I would appreciate your votes. If you have questions, you can go to my Facebook page, Don Varney, for Reno County Commissioner. I'd be happy to message you. If you want to go out for coffee, just talk, that would be wonderful. And thank you again for spending your time and coming out here with us tonight.
Thank you, Dawn. And next we'll hear closing statements from Mike Sullivan.
Well, the 3 things I point out is obviously you need to listen to voters and voter input, kind of know where they're coming from, what they need. Look for ways to save dollars for taxpayers, and work to implement new jobs, new business in a responsible manner so it's not costing the taxpayers money. In terms of ways to save tax proposals, I have experience with the school district. The first year I was there, by working the money harder, I had interest more than covered my salary for the year. I implemented a program where school supplies are purchased with bids. We call it the bulk order thing. And on one item, I saved $10,000, just one item, by negotiating with suppliers and bidding, that sort of thing. I don't know if the county does that, but I'd certainly be interested in pursuing that if it's something that could be done to save money for the taxpayers through the county. And as a business manager, worked with all levels of employees, hired cooks, bus drivers. I was involved with all of that and working with teachers and trying to help them accomplish their goals. So I think I can work with just about anybody. Would appreciate the opportunity to do that. I just want to use the experience and the skills I have to try to help the county taxpayers.
Thank you, Mike. Well, that concludes the first segment of this evening for the Reno County Commission District 1. Everyone, please join me for one more round of applause for these candidates. We're going to take a 5-minute reset so that we can reset the stage for the State House of Representatives seats, and we will be back here at 6:46 to resume. And Casey Slaughter, who is with us from Wichita. And then for Kansas Representative District 102 seat, we have incumbent Kyler Sweely and Tyson Thrall, both from Hutchinson. Candidates, thank you for coming out tonight. Let's give these folks a round of applause and appreciation. The format, again, for this portion of this evening will be similar to the earlier session. 3-minute opening statement, and then we'll have about 6 to 8 questions, and then we'll end the debate with a closing statement from each candidate. And again, these questions have been prepared by our Public Policy Committee. We do have Leanne Cox in front, who will be keeping us on time, and she will hold up the yellow card when there are 30 seconds left remaining in your 2-minute question and answer session, and then she'll hold up the red card at the 2-minute mark. For the audience, again, we ask that you be respectful of the candidates, and we will begin in the order of responses from my left, your left. The order of responses for beginning will be District 101, and we will start with introduction and opening statement by Casey Slaughter.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the chamber. I'm Casey Slaughter. I am a lifelong Kansan, native from Wichita, Kansas. I'm a 20-year law enforcement guy. Just actually crossed my 20-year law enforcement mark. I'm the commander of the Property Crimes Task Force for the entire South Central region in Kansas. So that includes Reno County and Hutchinson, actually. We actually have 19 agencies involved. We started with about 5 in late October of 2024, and we've now expanded that to about 19 different agencies, and I think we're going to get a couple more here, so we'll probably be at 21 here in about 90 days. So pretty excited about that. We've done a ton of great work for the community. We've recovered about $10.7 million in property and in our time as the task force, and made just over 1,000 arrests. So they are doing really, really great work. We've driven property crimes down in all these communities into 5-year lows. So it's not just statistics, it's also the outcomes on the other end. I'm also a local business owner. I've got Walden Medical Staffing that I'm a co-owner for, and we staff long-term care facilities all throughout Kansas. So that's assisted living and skilled nursing and geriatric psych, and we had one hospital at one point. I'm also the former state FOP president, which is the Fraternal Order of Police. That is, I'm actually the immediate past president now, but that is how I got really involved into the political scene. I started meeting folks, good folks like Kyler, and a lot of other leadership in the House and Senate, and eventually in those like 3 to 4 years, I obviously met Joe Sywert, who was the incumbent before he retired after his 18 years, and I appreciate his service. But that's how I met everybody, and they basically kind of convinced me that I should probably run for office, and I kind of thought about it. Leaned into all the legislative work that I had done in those 3 years and helped create and draft bills and go to committees and testify. So when I get to Topeka, I'm going to be able to hit the ground running because I have a really good understanding of how the Topeka government works. So I'm pretty excited about the opportunity. I do want to address state challenges, and I have a desire to see some change in Topeka. I want to represent constituents' interests, obviously. And then if I had a platform to run on, it's going to be lowering property taxes. That's number one on my list. Protecting life. I'm pro-life as well. Public safety, of course, is going to be close to my heart. So fire and police. My dad was a fire captain for 28 years. So we've got public safety all throughout our family. My brother actually was EMS. So, and then supporting economic opportunity and ensuring government remains accountable to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey. And next we'll hear from candidates for District 102, beginning with Representative Kyler Sweely.
Thank you, Deborah, and thanks for the chamber for putting this on, and thanks for everyone coming out. I'm Representative Kyler Sweely. I've served in the Kansas House for the last 2 years. I was elected in 2024, where I beat a 4-term incumbent. I lifelong Kansan, and I serve on the Financial Institutions and Pensions Committee, Judiciary Committee, and I'm the Vice Chair of Higher Education Budget Committee. That's all. I mean, I didn't need a big, long introduction. Thank you.
And next, we will hear from his opponent in District 102, Mr. Tyson Thrall.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tyson Thrall. I'll have been married 12 years in October to my beautiful wife here, and we're raising our 3 children here in Hutchinson. So I didn't choose Hutchinson to run for office. I chose Hutchinson because it's home. I live here. I work at Hutchinson Correctional Facility. I worship at Crosspoint. Shout out to all my Crosspointers out there. And I'm raising my family here. I want to leave Hutchinson strong for the next generation. I understand the burden of high taxes because I pay them. I understand parents' concerns about education because I'm raising school-age children. I've watched fentanyl devastate families in the community, and no family should have to endure that. I share the concerns many residents have about hyperscale data centers. I share the concerns families have about homelessness in our downtown and in parks and where our children play as a father myself. Most importantly, I know this community. The people of Hutch aren't just voters to me. They're my family, they're my friends, they're my neighbors, and they're my coworkers. I know that the excitement about the new YMCA wasn't just about a big, beautiful building. It was the fact that we actually had enough parking. And I know the closing of Dutch Kitchen wasn't just about losing a restaurant. It was about losing a place where generations of Hutch families made memories together. I love America, and I love Hutchinson. I believe we've drifted from the biblical principles and moral foundation that made our nation strong. And I want to help restore those principles here at home. As a husband and a father, I believe we need more family and less government, because strong families are what build strong communities. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we will get started with our first set of questions, and we'll begin this one answered by Casey Slaughter. The Chamber believes it is important for Kansas to maintain programs and tools to support economic development, investment, and job creation, including competitive incentives and investments in workforce training that allow businesses to have trained workers for the future. If elected, what policies do you support to encourage existing and new businesses to invest in Kansas?
So, being a business owner for 5 years, on top of being a police captain, I see certainly the benefits of attracting new businesses to Kansas. We have to make Kansas the best place we can to live, work, and play, if you will. I think you have to have, as part of that, to be able to attract businesses to Kansas, you have to have good schools, you got to have affordable housing, and you got to have low taxes, and that includes property taxes. So those are the 3 things I would definitely focus on in attracting businesses. We've got to support public and private partnerships, and government has to be involved in that in terms of incentivizing business to come here. We've got to advocate for competitive incentives in workforce training to attract, again, good businesses to the Reno County and the whole state of Kansas. And then we've got to support local and state economic development tools that are in place. And I know that STAR bonds and TIFs and CIDs are something that are important to folks, and something we have to look at reasonably and responsibly, because there are times in Kansas where I think those have not worked well, and there are times that they have worked well, and we've seen net gains for the community. So it's just something we have to look at very closely and responsibly and do what needs to be done in Kansas to make sure that we have the best place for businesses to grow.
Thank you, Casey. And next for District 102, we'll begin with Kyler, followed by Tyson. And I should also mention then that Kyler will have a chance for a 1-minute rebuttal.
Can you ask the whole question again, please?
Sure. The Chamber believes it is important for Kansas to maintain programs and tools to support economic development, investment, and job creation, including competitive incentives and investments in workforce training that allow businesses to have trained workers for the future. If elected, what policies do you support to encourage existing and new businesses to invest in Kansas?
Thank you. I think my record speaks for itself. I've been a very pro-business candidate and representative for the city of Hutchinson. I've got a new bill done this year, House Bill 2596, that actually brings housing to Hutchinson and has local partnerships with local community and local business to partner with the prison to make more housing, low-income affordable housing. But I ultimately think Casey had a good point. I think there's three things you need to make sure to have business come into Hutchinson and come into Kansas. You need good schools, lower taxes, and you need good housing. And that's one of the three things that I've tried to take on is less spending at the government level to incentivize business. The more the government spends, it's not good. Lower taxes. I've voted for 8 out of 8 property tax relief plans, and unfortunately they didn't come through. But I've been the most pro-business candidate that this Hutchinson has seen in the last decade for sure. Thank you.
And Tyson Thrall?
I'm right there with Casey Slaughter, man. That last name, it really sounds like a sports team. Like that's what I'd want to play on. The Slaughter. Yeah, that's great. Cutting taxes, cutting regulation, and speaking about the free market. I think as far as job creation goes, it's going to be private citizens that are going to create jobs. I don't think that the government has any role in that, and I don't think that we're very good at it. First of all, government by and large isn't even very good at getting balance a budget. And you know what happens to private business when they can't balance a budget? They fail. So why would they take advice from us? Or I'm not even there, right? Why'd they take advice from government? The point is, if we cut taxes, we cut regulation, then the free market, let it work. Let it be free, truly free. And then the winners will win, and the losers will lose, and then you guys will choose. That's what I think.
And Kyler, do you have any rebuttal?
Yeah, and I think my record actually reflects that exact thing. I'm not sitting up here just talking about it. I've actually done that. The state cut, or the House cut $200 million on the state budget this year, and I'm very proud to support that. Lower spending means lower taxes. I've voted, like I said, 8 out of 8 in property tax relief plans, which I think is a major thing. Reno County's taxes are too high. I think the state doesn't have a very big say in what property taxes are or who's taxed on them. I think it's a local problem for the most part. The taxing entities are mostly local. But I think my record shows, and I've done everything I can to be pro-business. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to question 2, and we're going to go in the order that we outlined, even though we're missing Kevin. So Casey, you're going to also answer this question first. Property tax continues to be a driving topic for state and local governments while balancing the three-legged stool of property tax, income tax, and sales tax in Kansas. Businesses value both fiscal responsibility and predictable tax policy. How would you balance the need for essential public services while keeping Kansas and Reno County competitive for businesses and taxpayers?
So obviously, property taxes is a pretty complicated issue. It's not a really easy answer. I think we all know that. When I get to Topeka, the first thing I'm going to be hopeful that I can get done is looking at how can we cut spending. I think that's one of the first things you got to look at, and then just an independent audit of the entire budget to see where are we looking at fraud, waste, and abuse. So if that is happening, I'm not saying there's a lot of fraud and abuse, but there certainly has got to be waste going on. So where can we cut? And then how can we attract local businesses, continue to attract local businesses to Kansas? Because that's where you're going to increase your revenues. So we've got to reduce our spending growth. Obviously, we've got to prioritize our core services. We've got to conduct our performance audits and eliminate inefficiencies that we see in the system. We've got to use our reserve funds very, very cautiously. Because again, that's a finite amount of money, and once it's gone, it's gone. And then we've got to increase revenue through economic growth and attract new businesses to Kansas.
Okay, and next, this question, Tyson will go first.
I agree by and large in a lot of ways with Casey. Property tax it sucks, first of all. but if we look at the legislature, we've had a supermajority for how long? I understand I talked to somebody since the early 90s, and property taxes are where they are. So I think that speaks a little for itself. If we haven't been able to lower that, we haven't been able to cut costs, cut spending, cut that, I think that speaks enough. So I guess that would be enough to say that we just need to hire different people that have a different mode and form of governance that actually seek to be fiscally responsible and aren't looking to go just to be in power. So I kind of look a lot like Michael Murphy whenever he was talking about his different tax proposal. I'm not a huge proponent of swapping tax for tax. By and large, I'm really not. But if that's what we have to do in the short term, I'm more interested in doing what he's talking about with the it's not really a sales tax, but more of a, and I'm totally spacing on the word. There you go. He's helping out. Nice guy. A consumption tax. So I think that's a fair all the way across the board, and I'd be more interested in something like that, to where then you can kind of systematically cut out different property tax, where it starts at tags, and then goes to people who are of Social Security age, and they're at a fixed income, and they're getting priced out of their homes. So we start there, I think, as well, and saying, hey, here's a cut for that. You don't have to pay property tax any longer. You've earned it. Good job.
Kyler?
I'd like to just say some things about what was said right then. The legislature hasn't done anything on property tax since the 1990s is completely false. Yes, we've had a supermajority, that's true. The state actually does very, very little with property tax, and that's why the state hasn't done that much. So the state actually charged 19.5 mils for public education. My first year in office, we ended the mill and a half extra levy that the state charged, which lowered property taxes. And then we lowered the budget this year, $200 million. And that's ultimately the goal in this. You know, there's two different plans in the House and the Senate. One was that we put a valuation cap on raising valuations, and they cap it within inflation. And the other was that we have revenue neutral government, and revenue neutral government's a big thing. We need to have government spending responsibly within a certain limit to fall into inflation, to not go over a budget. The more money you spend, the more money you have to be taxed. The plan from Senator Murphy was actually, can I finish what I'm saying, or is it done right there?
No, we're done. And then we'll have a rebuttal by Tyson if you wish.
Well, it just doesn't seem like enough. I think that we just need to continue to cut and look at all the different the fraud, waste, and abuse, like we talked about, in the government. And if it's not constitutionally in our jurisdiction to take care of it, let's get out of it.
Casey, you had a question, and I'm assuming you might have asked if you get to have a rebuttal since you don't have an opponent here. Was that your question?
That was my question.
If you have a rebuttal, you should have the privilege of 1 minute rebuttal. Okay.
I'll be quick. So I do agree with my colleagues. You know, you brought up folks being taxed out of their homes. I mean, how many of you feel the burn of property taxes? I mean, I certainly do. You know, I built my home 12 years ago, sunk every penny I had into this home, and it was at the time $300,000. Well, now they say my home's worth double, and I'm getting obviously these massive property tax bills on my house, and ultimately this is an unrealized gain. If I just purchased stock at $300,000 and it grew to $600,000, I wouldn't have paid a dime until I sold the stock, and I can sell the stock anytime I want. When I sell my house, somebody's got to buy that. Somebody's got to spend and want to spend $600,000 for me to realize that gain eventually. So, yeah, it's an unfair system. I can't stand property taxes, and we've got to do something about it, especially home valuations.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to question 3, and this one will begin for District 102 with Kyler Sweely, followed by Tyson, and then a 1 minute rebuttal by Mr. Sweely, and then we will have the 2 minutes from Mr. Slaughter. And this is a 2-part question. In local surveys, employers cite workforce development as one of their top needs to ensure a future workforce pipeline. Do you view public school funding as an investment in the workforce pipeline or as a cost to be minimized? And what is your position on education funding specifically related to public education, school choice, and fully funding special education?
Okay, I'll try to cram that into 2 minutes. I think that, like I said, one of the 3 pillars of bringing new business and economic development to Hutchinson is having good schools is one of the main pillars. I think that public schools is a big thing, and I think it matters a lot to the community, and I believe that we need to fully fund public schools, and I'm glad to do that for 2 years in a row that I was there. And fully funding special education, I think that's also a big thing. And there has never in the state of Kansas been more money spent on public education and special education than there is right now. I think the dollars need to be spent responsibly, of course. I think the dollars need to show the efforts and the work that has been done with them, and we need to see progressive gains out of this. We need to see gains with kids having higher test scores, getting more jobs, and being more technical educated and everything like that. But I do think that, yeah, and I am in favor of school choice. I just think that public schools need to be fully funded for school choice to be a thing. And I think that public schools are fully funded and special education is fully funded. And that would be the next step to go through school choice, where parents get to pick what school their children go to and the education that they deserve.
Thank you, Kyler. And Tyson?
Can you repeat the entire thing? There's a lot packed into that question. You did a pretty good job of answering all that and remembering, but can you repeat it again, please?
Sure, I can. In local surveys, employers cite workforce development as one of their top needs to ensure a future workforce pipeline. Do you view public school funding as an investment in the workforce pipeline or a cost to be minimized? And what is your position on education funding specifically related to public education, school choice, and fully funding special education?
Yes. I do believe that it is an investment in the future of the workforce. And so I'm absolutely in favor of looking at the current economy. What are jobs that are needed out there? What are skills that that students are needing? And if we can affect that and get them certifications or things like that throughout their tenure in high school, junior high, whatever it is, we really focus on what is this kid's bend, right? I have 3 kids, and I look at them and I think, okay, what do I think they're gonna do in the future? Because they're gonna do something. And if I can affect that and encourage that along the way, I think that's education in a nutshell. And so, yeah, I think that's absolutely important to do that, and I would be in favor of that because you're going to ultimately affect the economy overall for a net positive, given skills out there. School choice, I'm in favor of that. I think if a kid lives over here and he looks at this school over here and he says, "Man, those guys are doing better than this school right here," then sure, you can go over here. Competition breeds excellence, and that's same for schools, same for free enterprise, same for schools. I really like what Texas is doing right now. They have an opt-in. So for all of our homeschoolers out there, I love you. Texas is really doing an opt-in opportunity to where kids and parents they can opt in and then take state dollars to then help them. The money will follow the kid. And I prefer the opt-in one because I know as a homeschooler myself and all that we don't necessarily want the government ties. And we won't take them if we don't want them, right? But it's an option. So I'm for that.
And Mr. Sweely, you have a chance for a 1-minute rebuttal.
Yeah, ultimately, I think there needs to be government oversight if we're going to be giving money to homeschool. I mean, you're talking about spending taxpayer money responsibly, and they need to have taxpayer money spent responsibly. So I think there's a lot of good things that Hutch is the front runner in the state, and a lot of people don't understand that. At Hutch, between the community college and the high school, we have one of the best CTE programs in the state of Kansas, and this is filling the gap of all the needs that we need in the workforce right now of nursing, auto tech, welding, everything that you could possibly need that's a technical trade. That a community college and the high school is going through with that and trying to get as many kids many kids acquainted with that as possible. The chamber is doing a lot of things to acquaint these kids with these types of workforce development, and I think that's a major thing, and I'm happy to keep doing that, and I'm happy to fund it at the higher education budget as the vice chairman of that committee. So ultimately in favor of funding public schools. Thank you.
And next for Representative for District 102, Casey Slaughter.
So some of my family, probably half of my family is from Hutchinson, actually still lives here, and they attend or have attended Hutch Community College and have worked at the hospital here. So I think supporting incentives for internships, apprenticeships, and technical education is hugely important. I would encourage cooperation between businesses, schools, and community colleges, obviously. And then I would back full funding for vocational and technical training initiatives, because I see the benefits in that 100%. As far as school choice, I'm very pro school choice. Students in low income and underperforming districts often face limited options and challenges. So the voucher programs, educational savings accounts, the ESAs, tax credit scholarships, and give access to higher quality schools. So that's something I would be in favor of. And I definitely want to increase parental involvement in education. I think it ultimately comes down to the parents to decide how best their child can pick a school, especially if a child's not doing well in a particular school for whatever reason, whether they're bullied or if they're just not jiving in that particular school. We should be able to move around and pick the school that works best for the child. And there is evidence from states like Arizona and I believe Florida that shows that expanded school choice actually increase test scores and provides greater parental satisfaction and improve student safety, as I mentioned. So definitely a proponent for school choice.
Thank you, Casey. And I correct myself. You're the candidate for District 101. I misstated that a moment ago. So next, question 4, we'll begin with District 102 with candidate Tyson Thrall, followed by Representative Sweely, and then Mr. Thrall will have a chance for the 1-minute rebuttal, followed by District 101, Casey Slaughter. And this is a rather long question, but it's really building on this workforce and education topic. Hutchinson Community College has a tradition of excellence through learning and collaboration with extensive partnerships with area business and industry and area K-12 schools. Together, they have built a strong workforce pipeline in healthcare, construction, welding, auto collision repair, auto mechanics, machining, etc. In this past legislative session, House Bill 2485 cut off collaboration between Hutch CC and USD 308 in career and technical education programs. This bill drastically reduced funding for both K-12 and the community college side of these partnerships. Will you commit to sponsoring a fix to HB 2485 next session, and what will that fix look like?
Well, first off, I'd want to determine why. Why did they go ahead and do the cut? What was their line of thinking? What was their purpose behind it? But obviously, as I stated earlier, I'm in favor of kind of filling the pipeline, so to speak, for needed the filling of jobs out there in the marketplace. As far as what I do, I guess I would look at what was already done before they undid it. And so ultimately, I'm in favor of that. I think it's a good spend of taxpayer dollar to look ahead in the future and look at what is needed now and what might be needed in the future for being educated for the workforce. I think work is a blessing. And I think that we need to value that more and more. We were created to work, and we need to do it. We find value and meaning in it, and it's important.
Representative Sweely?
Is it 2485, correct?
2485.
Yes. So 2485 actually came up this year. It was trying to set up an arrangement or to discontinue an arrangement that was set up between a public or a high school and a community college I think that there's a lot of misinformation that goes out about this, about CTE and technical education funding, that there is a cut in funding, which is not true at all. The cut in funding, it comes from a cut in funding, but also the cut from expense. So the high school got less money because they're not also spending money on the CTE training. The college has to do it. So that instead of making a middleman of the high school paying for facilities and paying for teachers and everything else, the community college is just taking on that cost, and the community college is actually paying that. So I think that we've sat in a room, myself, President Paramore, Principal Uwe, or Principal Ivy, excuse me, and we've talked about this, and the CTE instructor, we've talked about this, and Superintendent Johnson, and we've tried to get everybody on board to what the solution is for this, and we're actively going back next year to try and fix this, if there is any wrongdoing.
Okay, thank you. And any rebuttal from Tyson?
I'd like to see what they come up with. Until we know exactly the reason, I mean, I'm not really sure what else to say about it.
Okay, thank you. And Casey Slaughter?
So I'm obviously not completely familiar with the bill. I'd have to read over the bill to be fully familiar. But I already stated, in one of I think the previous question, that I would back funding for vocational and technical training initiatives, and also just. I would be a supportive for an advocate, I should say, for fair and equitable K through 12 funding and strong local authority over education funds. And I think childcare goes into that as well. I think that we've got to look at childcare incentives and initiatives there. And I would endorse funding for technical education, including Hutch Community College.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to question 5, and this one will begin with District 101, Casey Slaughter, and followed by Representative Sweely, District 102, and Tyson Thrall. Many of the biggest challenges facing Reno County and our state, workforce, housing, childcare, infrastructure, and economic development, cannot be solved by one organization alone. If elected, how would you work collaboratively to achieve measurable progress on these priorities?
So I think anytime you talk about working collaboratively, you have to include all the stakeholders in any kind of decision. So that includes obviously working with your legislative stakeholders in Topeka. Obviously, as a freshman legislature, I certainly won't claim to know everything about everything, so it's something I would have to learn as well. So leaning on fellow legislators would be one. Certainly working with the community and speaking with the residents and neighbors of the community in District 101, and absolutely working with businesses and schools and any of the other stakeholders within that pie, if you will, to come up with the best possible solution. You're never going to make everybody happy doing anything, obviously. And unfortunately, sometimes in decisions that, especially related to government programs, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And I hate to say it like that, but that is the truth. And you have to try to find the best balance that you can that keeps everybody at least on a fairly equitable playing field when it comes to government funds. Because I think taxpayer dollars, anytime you spend them on anything, you have to be a very good steward to the community of those taxpayer dollars. And that's what I'm going to be when I'm representative for 101.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. And Representative Sweely.
Can you ask a question? I think I got
Sure.
most of it, but ask it again, please.
Yeah, many of the biggest challenges facing Reno County and Kansas are workforce, housing, childcare, infrastructure, and economic development. Cannot be solved alone by one organization alone. If elected, how would you work collaboratively to achieve measurable progress on these priorities?
I think Casey got a good point in there. I think the problem with politicians today that they say that they're elected because they're the smartest person. And I will tell you, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm not the smartest person in this room or any room. But the problem is you have to have somebody that can get with everybody and get the right answers and make their own assumptions to build up their own leadership style. I partnered with the chamber on a bill. I partnered with United Way. I've taken tours of Tech here in town. I've worked with Tech on bills, the American Heart Association with bills. That was an incident that affected one of my constituents. I've worked with the prison. I've been endorsed by the sheriff of the county. I have worked with the police officer, or the police chief, and the police officers in Hutchinson. And I think I sit on an unhoused coalition meeting that they do every single month, and a mental health coalition board. And I think that's a big thing to diversify everything, because I'm not going to be the subject matter expert at every single thing that I do. It's just impossible. If somebody tells you that, they're wrong. So surrounding myself with the professionals and the people that they're subject matter experts in every single field is my type of style of leadership, and that's what I've done. And I think it's proven that. I mean, if you check out my Facebook page, there's a tour almost every other week that I've gone in of local businesses, Milestone Clubhouse, the prison, and every single time I've asked, what can I do for you guys? Because that's what my job is. My job is to represent 25,000 people into one vote. My job is not my best idea or whatever Kyler Sweely thinks is the best idea. My job is to turn what the majority of the district would like, and I've done, I think I've done a good job at that.
And Mr. Thrall?
Again, it's a long question. Can you repeat all of those points, please?
I'd be glad to. Many of the biggest challenges facing Reno County and our state, workforce, housing, childcare, infrastructure, economic development, cannot be solved by one organization alone. If elected, how would you work collaboratively to achieve measurable progress on these priorities?
Well, that is exactly right. It cannot be solved by one single entity alone. As far as working together with different people, I would first look at jurisdiction. State government, is it our place to get involved money-wise, or is it just our place to get involved advice-wise, just peer-to-peer, and talk about and encourage these other entities to do good work, or encourage them in their good work? As far as economic development, I don't think that's our place at all. I don't think we should do tax abatements, tax incentives, anything like that. Let the businesses, let you guys choose who wins, who loses. And I know winners and losers, it's life. It's what we have. You can learn from losing. Winning is great, but you don't learn a whole lot. But that's okay. Childcare, man, we really need to empower parents. We need to empower parents, to be responsible, to look at their kids as the next generation, and to sacrifice themselves, sacrifice their own life. I mean, I've experienced that. I have 3 kids. The other night, I had one 2-year-old. I heard her throw up. Go to her room, I could just smell it before I opened the door. I'm like, oh, it's gross. Anyways, I go in there. She's just laying there next to the throw up. And I say, you okay, baby? She's like, yeah. Tough little girl, tell you what. She throws up like 3 times, never cries once. Anyways, we need to encourage parents. We need to encourage other people in these entities. And if it's our job to get involved in that, then let's get involved.
Okay, and Representative Sweely, any rebuttal?
Yeah. I think that my work with other groups has shown. I mean, I mentioned that I work with the community college a lot, and I love working with the community college. I've taken tours of every level of public schooling in the town, of the private schools, high school, middle school, and elementary school. I think that's a big thing, and you have to put all those people together. I was also endorsed by the Firefighters Union, Kansans for Life, Kansas Rifle Association. There's a reason why all these groups are endorsing me, is because I'm the most pro-life, pro-gun, pro-working together candidate in this race, and it has shown that.
Okay, we will move on to question 6. This one will begin with District 101 candidate Casey Slaughter, followed by District 102 candidate Tyson Thrall, followed by Representative Sweely. And this is on the topic of healthcare, and I feel like I've been asking this question for as long as I've been here in Reno County for the last 9 years. Healthcare is both a critical service and one of Reno County's largest employment sectors. Kansas continues to experience rural hospital closures and financial woes due to lost revenue and reimbursement rates. And yet we are one of only a few states that have chosen not to opt into Medicaid expansion. What is your stance on Medicaid expansion as it relates to one of our largest employers in Reno County?
So this is a tough one for me. You know, we own a staffing agency in Kansas, so we understand this particular topic pretty well, actually, in terms of being able to staff hospitals, nursing homes, and geriatric psych places here throughout Kansas. It's difficult. It really is, because there is a staffing shortage all throughout Kansas. Where I'm at on Medicaid expansion, without additional guardrails over Medicaid expansion and without specific work requirements for folks that are able-bodied, we're talking about 30-year-old able-bodied adults who otherwise can get out into the workforce and work. Without that, I'm not in support of Medicaid expansion. Now, that's different, though, a little bit different than being in support of possibly looking at the Medicaid reimbursement line. And I'm open to looking at that. That's different than Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion, as I had looked at and reviewed, would cost the state somewhere between $1.3 and $2 billion. That is a lot of money when you're talking about a budget that we have of, I believe it's $27 billion, roughly. Maybe Kyler can correct me if I'm wrong. Now, there's a caveat to that. Obviously, federal funding is supposed to pick up 90% of that. That's what it's supposed to. What happens when the federal funding gets shut off? Because someday, folks, the bill is going to come due on the national debt. And right now we're at about $40 trillion. That is completely outrageous. It actually, I've done the calculation on this. It's $115,000 roughly to every man, woman, and child in America. Child. So a 1-year-old owes the federal government $115,000. That's ridiculous. So we've got to do something. We cannot just continue to add to the national debt, and that's what Medicaid expansion potentially is going to do. And I would see an explosion in the debt from our own budget here in Kansas, and I would not be in support currently.
And Tyson, this one's yours.
I'm really with Casey on that. I don't see a viable solution to expanding that. I'm not even in favor of expanding it if there was, but we don't need to spend more. We've already proven that we're not capable of reining it in anyway, so why would we just run our heads into the walls in that regard? What I am in favor of is communicating healthy lifestyles to people to get healthier, to grow, to strengthen themselves, to eat better, to all that kind of stuff, and as well as not just physically but financially as well. We used to teach in school I remember I was in school, they taught me how to balance a checkbook. Of course, we don't write checks anymore, but it's still useful knowledge. So actually my dad does. I mean, he does still write checks, that old man. Anyways, I'm not in favor ultimately for a Medicaid expansion. I don't think it's going to help us. I think it's only going to hurt us in the long run and even in the short term.
Representative Sweely?
I hate this for you guys because we all are, the same party and we get asked the same questions and there's going to be talking points that we all just regurgitate, so I apologize. But I think the biggest thing is the unexpected outcome of what's going to happen if we legalize or expand Medicaid, and it's going to take the budget and it grows. The budget's going to grow 10 to 20% right away. So what you're saying is taxes are going to go up instantly. The second that this happens, you have to cover it somehow. The argument's always that the federal government's going to pay 90-10, and with certain regulations in place, I can guarantee you that the federal government will not always pay 90-10. It is going to change at some point. There needs to be work requirements on it if there's ever going to do it. The work requirements that we've done at the State House would have been 25 hours a week, and members of the opposing party always disagree with that, and they don't want people to work for having health care. So I think It's a very important thing. I've spoken to the CEO of the hospital about this exact issue. I've met with him multiple times. I think the bigger issue is Medicaid reimbursement rates. And they fixed reimbursement rates 3 years ago, the year before I went to the legislature. And it's about time that we do it again. So if, the hospital spends $400 worth of services, the federal government's only paying $200 of that. So that extra $200, that hospital has to make up somewhere else. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about reimbursement rates. So getting that on par with hospitals actually being able to be paid back for the services that they're doing is going to be the biggest thing for healthcare that we can do. And I understand that rural healthcare is a big thing. In Kansas, healthcare seems like it's going away at some parts. So I think I would like to thank the two senators, Roger Marshall and Jerry Moran, for what they've done for rural health care. And we got tens of millions of dollars, $200 million over the next 5 years to go to rural health care. And I think that's a big thing. And luckily, Hutch had two places that got some of that money. So it's great. Thank you.
And Mr. Thrall, do you have any rebuttal? Okay. Moving on to question 7, we'll begin with District 102, Representative Sweely, followed by Mr. Thrall. There is a growing divide amongst Americans of different political ideologies, and that's no different for Kansans. As elected leaders, what will you do to help close the divide and work across the aisle?
I think it's super important. I think that people don't understand. They see what happens at the federal level, and they see whatever President Trump does, Democrats vote against it. Whatever President Biden did, Republicans voted against it. And that's not really what happens at the state level. The state level, I would assume, that is 110 out of 125 votes plus almost 90% of the time. So I think that we have a good working cohesive group between the two. I think there's obviously party lines, that there's some things that trickle down from federal level that the two parties will never agree with. But I think the bill that I got passed this year, House Bill 2596, speaks volumes about this. I had 111 votes in the House out of 125, and that shows that it went across the aisle. Unfortunately, I would have had a perfect bill, I would say, because there was an amendment that was brought up to raise the minimum wage in the state of Kansas, which had nothing to do with the actual bill that we had, and it was non-germane, so the amendment can't come on. And I had Democrats vote against my bill because the minimum wage would not be raised. It's unfortunate, but I think it's proof, and I think I would have had 120 plus votes on a bill that I've worked on, and I think it's a very big thing. I've worked with city council, county commission. It doesn't matter what party or whoever they're associated with. I really don't care. I want what's the best for Hutchinson, and I want what's best for Kansas, and I think I've shown that.
Mr. Thrall?
First thing I would do is pray. I mean, ultimately, if we can't come to a foundation of principles, of an understanding, then we're not going to get anywhere. I mean, we can talk to each other until we're blue in the face, but if we can't agree on something foundational, if we don't have a foundation to stand on, then we're going to get nowhere. So you got to listen, you got to pray, you got to seek wisdom, and that's what I would do.
Thank you. And Representative Sweely, any rebuttal?
I would just say that, it's shown at the State House how much we've worked together. And I think that, like I said, that there's people with different views that probably didn't even vote for me within, the organizations in town that I work with all the time. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. I don't really care who you vote for after the fact. It doesn't matter. It's what's best for Hutchinson, and I think I've shown that. It doesn't even come up. I don't care if you have a yard sign in your yard or if you say something nasty to me at the door. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's what's best for Hutchinson, and working together solves that.
And Mr. Slaughter?
So I would say, I'm a bridge builder, and I have a track record of that. When I started the Property Crimes Task Force in Wichita about October 2024, we had 5 agencies at that time, to include Wichita. And I was pretty happy to have the 5 agencies at the time. I thought that was a lot. And then throughout that time, moving forward into where we are now, we have almost 20. and we will have 20 probably in the next 90 days. So that's hard. It's hard work, I'm telling you, to get, chiefs of police and sheriffs all on board. We have every single county surrounding Wichita in this thing, all the way from Kingman to Butler to Sumner to Reno. Everybody's in. Harvey County, and a whole bunch of municipalities all in between, to include Hutchinson, as I mentioned earlier. It's hard to get people to agree sometimes the grass is green. And to get that many folks on board for a singular task and going in the same direction, that's kind of what I like to do, and that's the relationship building that I do. And going back to my experience with the state Fraternal Order of Police, that's kind of where, like I said, I got more involved in politics, and I started meeting legislators all throughout the Capitol, really starting with Joe Sywert, who was, again, the retired incumbent for District 101. But that led me to meeting so many great people on both sides of the aisle. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican through and through. However, that doesn't mean Democrats are bad people. They just have different philosophies, different ideologies. That's okay. I can still work with Democrats on issues, and we should. There are times where we have to compromise, and in any compromise, both sides generally come out not completely happy. It's hard to find any compromise where one side feels like, yes, I won that entire thing. That's pretty rare in any kind of decision making that goes on. So I would say relationships and networking are my thing, and it's something I really enjoy doing. It's something I'm going to continue doing in Topeka.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. And now moving on to the final question. Question 8 will begin with District 102 candidate Tyson Thrall, followed by Representative Sweely and Mr. Slaughter. If elected, what are your top 3 goals to accomplish in the 2027 session?
Top 3 would be lowering property taxes, empowering, as far as returning in excellence to education, and empowering parents, that they are the first point of education in the home. And faith and community initiative. Unpack that a little bit. So in 2019, when Ron DeSantis took the governorship in Florida, he hired a guy named Eric Dellenbach. If you don't know that, you'll know the next name that I share. He worked with Tim Tebow, and he created and started and continued the Tim Tebow Foundation. And then he went to work with DeSantis in 2019, and they started what was called the Faith and Community Initiative. And so what that meant was they just said, let's look at our largest voter block in the state, and it just so happened to be the church, the Christian church. And they decided to send thank you cards out to these people. 40,000 thank you cards they sent out, and they said, hey, we don't really sure how to thank you, but we want to thank you for all the work that you do, working and with the most vulnerable among us, the orphans and the widows, and James talks about that. And they got about 5,000 responses back. And long story short, about 2,200 churches, nonprofits, synagogues work with the state of Florida. In 2019, they had about 23,332 in the foster care system. In 2025, when he was giving this talk at the end, they were just under 15,000. So in 16 years, they had affected that in that way. I think that we can, some of us, not all of us, can agree that the church can do more for the citizen and for longer than the government ever could. And that's a point that I would like to bring to Kansas. And top 3. Thank you.
Representative Sweely?
I think the biggest thing, I would just take it down to one thing. I think the biggest thing in this country right now is affordability. I think the government needs to spend money more responsible, and they haven't. And I think that this year, cutting $200 million from the budget is a very big thing. I think we need to continue to fund public schools. I think we need to continue to have kids go through career and technical education training to build up the workforce for the future. I think that we need to lower property taxes. Like I said earlier, the state has a very, very small role in property tax right now, and it's on local government. We have to have local government be accountable for the money that they spend. And that is unfortunate, but that's how it goes right now. The more money that some entity of a government spends, the more money they have to take in, and it's that simple. So I think being just responsible of that, and I think that there's another thing of medical care. I think that we lowered PBM reform this year, and we lowered prescription prescription drug costs this year. I think that's continuing to do what we need to talk about is Medicaid reimbursement rates. Prescription pills need to be cheaper. There needs to stop being these hidden fees within everything. And I think that I've done that at the state level, and I continue to do that. So thank you.
Mr. Thrall, do you have any rebuttal? No. Okay, and then the final question 8 for District 101 candidate Casey Slaughter.
Well, I'll make mine quick because it's very similar. Lowering property taxes, that has to be number one. And it is number one on all of my material. Just simply being responsible stewards of tax dollars and reducing spending, attracting good businesses to Kansas. Number 2, protecting life and protecting your Second Amendment rights. Those are huge for me. So I'm pro-life, and I want to make sure we continue to stay that way. And then obviously number 3, close, near and dear to my heart, supporting strong public safety. So, and that includes fire, EMS, and all of our first responders to include police. This last year, the legislature, I'll give you a quick thing, did something really great. It's something the state FOP has been backing for a very long time, and that is wellness. Wellness is huge for us because it's something that has come around a little more so in the last couple of years for all first responders because we see and experience crazy things in this job. You can't even imagine. I get asked all the time, what's the wildest thing you've seen or what's the goriest scene and all that. And people always expect me to answer with, I've seen people that have been shot and things like that. My response every time is actually it's traffic accidents. Those are the worst, most goriest things you can see in law enforcement, and they do affect people. I've been pretty blessed in my time to have a pretty compartmentalized brain where I can forget easily, and that's a good thing to have in law enforcement, but not everybody has that. And I was just talking to the fire union president today, and they respond to a lot of stuff that is very traumatic. And so the legislature just this year initiated a $1 million pilot program for a wellness initiative for first responders who have PTSD. Currently under the work comp law, if you're shot or hurt in the line of duty, you qualify for PTSD, but you didn't qualify if you didn't have the corresponding physical injury. So if my partner gets shot and I see him or her get shot, they don't qualify for PTSD, or I don't qualify for PTSD coverage watching my partner get shot. And I think that's terribly wrong. So they fixed that this year. So now there's a $1 million pilot program. And so I really, really appreciate what the legislature did. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we come to closing statements, and we will begin with up to 3-minute closing statement from the candidate for District 101, Casey Slaughter, followed by Representative Sweely and Mr. Thrall.
I think you flip the coin and I always go first.
Yes, something like that.
I think, we've probably talked about this ad nauseum tonight. Obviously property taxes, huge for me. Again, I'm a lifelong Kansan, 20 years in law enforcement. We've talked about me being the property crimes task force commander. So all that stuff's going to be extremely important to me in terms of ensuring that criminal law stays strong in Kansas and that we're holding criminals accountable. I did forget to mention in my opening statement that I also have some pretty good endorsements. Congressman Derek Schmidt is endorsing me as well, and I've got, we'll be dropping this one soon, but I guess I'll drop it tonight. I have 21 chiefs of police and sheriffs backing me, to include the Sedgwick County Sheriff and the Reno County Sheriff, Darian Campbell. So I'm really proud of that. Again, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-Second Amendment. I want to be good stewards of your tax dollars. And I want to support economic opportunity and bringing new businesses to Kansas. Again, I'm a business owner. I'm actually going to be owning a second business soon. Hopefully that goes well. And then ensuring that government stays accountable to the people ultimately. That's the number one priority when it comes to looking at folks' tax dollars when you're up in Topeka. Thank you all very much for having us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slaughter. And for District 102, Representative Sweely.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming. I mean, it is a duty to come here, and it's a pleasure to see here and be here and speak to you guys. It's a blessing to serve this community at the State House. There are a couple things I left out. I did a quick intro, and I wasn't really thinking that much, but I served 5 years in the United States Army, where I deployed twice, once to the Middle East and once to Eastern Europe. So there's nobody in this race or in the community that loves this country more than I. Every single time when I was overseas, I would talk about, oh, I just want to get back to Kansas. I just want to get back to Kansas. And everyone would make fun of me. They'd say, what the hell is in Kansas? So I mean, I love this community. I love this state. I love this country. And I've shown that. I think that, when the moments mattered the most, there's been someone to step up, and that was me to run in this district. I ran and beat a 4-term incumbent. I stepped up and served this country, and I think that speaks volumes. So there's a couple other things that I'd like to do at the State House. I want to hit on mental health, and I've been working with the mental health coalition in town and some healthcare professionals to try to get that taken care of and stop the rise in mental health care right now, or mental health crisis. So I think that's very important, and I think that I've done a good job at that so far, and I've been very open and responsive to anybody that comes out and asks me. I will stand somewhere towards the front after this. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to come up, say hi, talk to me. I'll give you a business card, and I have my cell phone number on there, so feel free. But yeah, thank you so much for coming, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Representative Sweely. And lastly, Kansas Representative candidate for District 102, Mr. Tyson Thrall.
So I want to take you back in history to America's greatest diplomat, Ben Franklin. So when he came out of the room in the convention, and the gal asked him, "What sort of government have you put together?" He said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And so this is how we keep it, right? You guys come in here grilling us. Well, you're not grilling us, right? But you're listening, and you're discerning. You're determining who you're going to elect, who you're going to put up there to represent you, as you should. And thank you for coming. Good for all of you. And then I want to go to the greatest president ever, right? George Washington, unanimously elected. He said in his great farewell address, he said, of all the habits and dispositions that lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports, and in vain would that man claim tribute of patriotism who would seek to subvert these two great pillars. So George is saying, you're not even a patriot if you're against religion, if you're fighting against religion and morality, if you're fighting against God. George's words, not mine, but I believe him. Have a good night. God bless.
Thank you all. Let's give another round of applause for these candidates this evening. As we dismiss tonight, a couple of reminders. Early voting begins next week, July 15th, so please remember to get out and vote, and in the primary on August 4th. Have a safe evening, and we will see you at the General Election Candidate Forum in October. Thank you all.